And welcome to a brand new life, to a brand new day, all the way from the wastelands of California. My name is Michael, and I am a mere figment of your imagination. I look forward to once again serve you those sounds from the underground. First-time listeners, turn on, tune in, and drop out. This is a very different kind of show, a place where you don't feel so alone. Let us chase away the light no matter what you at home choose to believe. I do admire you for your curiosity. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again on a night like this, live and direct, and streaming to you live on YouTube and heard around the world. Hello to you from the future. You can find the podcast version of this program on all popular platforms. Tonight we have a bit of a full house here tonight. Two brave souls join us this evening. First up, Max Igan returns here to the program. He is a researcher, truth seeker. He also has a very popular YouTube channel. He's also a filmmaker and one of the leaders of Global Awakening Movement. Max Igan, no stranger to controversy. Max has even been attacked. Then after the break, he's appeared here before and we welcome him back into the circle. Mr. John Olson is alive and has some new content for all of us. And of course, the phone lines are open. That number is 760-332-8724. One more time, 760-332-8724. Don't be shy. You can definitely hang out with all of us here tonight. And before I waste any more time, we do have to get to our first guest here. Let's bring him in. I hate to make him wait. Max, are you out there?
I certainly am, brother. Can you hear me okay?
I could hear you loud and clearly here. I actually had to yell into the mic for a moment here and hit this channel here hard enough so it can actually work. Dead channel.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. The other mixer I had on here earlier, something happened and it really screwed up with the old mixer here.
Okay, interesting. Digital to analog.
Yeah, something happened. I'm not quite sure what it was, but now everything's rolling again, and I'm quite happy. So thank you so much for being here. I do apologize for all the inconveniences here tonight, Max.
All good, brother. All good. We're here now. Let's do it.
For sure, my friend. And before we begin here tonight, there's all sorts of things I do want to cover with you, but there are those out there who have never heard of you before. I thought you could sort of tell us a little bit about yourself as we get things rolling here tonight, my friend.
Okay, well, I guess I'm just an independent researcher. I spent most of my life as a musician. I kind of lived on the outside of society for all my life, which was kind of good because it gave me a kind of a window to look at the freak show from the outside and not really have to participate in it too much. And I became an activist. I've been an activist most of my life, but I became full-time activist probably about 10 or 12 years ago. And it just became necessary to do so, with the state of the world. So I spend most of my time traveling now and doing lectures and radio shows and making films and just trying to bring about some sort of positive change and wake the world up to the fact that we're in serious trouble. We need to pay attention to matters of state. So that's basically it, I think.
Oh, yes. Definitely. And of course, Max, earlier, as I was introducing you here, I even read that you were attacked.
Yeah, that was probably 3 or 4 years ago. That was after one of my talks speaking out against a particular state that I don't think we're able to mention on YouTube anymore. The men with small hats live, and
yes.
I got badly beaten. I got a couple of cracked ribs and a few things like that. So it just goes with the territory. It's just the way it is,
Yes, but of course you were not at any sort of age to be taking punches, Max.
No, I was about probably 59 or 60 years old. So it's sort of, yeah, it's jumped from behind. It was pretty low. I mean, I was outside. I got jumped from behind. I got hit, basically got punched in the right ear, and it, hit to the eardrum. You lose your balance. It's very, very disorienting, and I kind of dropped to the ground and took a few kicks around the ribs and stuff. And I mean, it could have been a lot worse. I mean, I was completely down for the count. I mean, the person could have killed me if he'd wanted to, but he didn't. So that's one consolation, I suppose. But it goes with the territory. I get lots of death threats. I get lots of people wanting to attack me. I've had someone tell me that if they see me in Philadelphia, they intend to shoot me.
Really?
A few weeks ago, so a few things like that. I mean, it just goes with the territory. You don't really take too much of it too seriously. It's just the way it goes when you become an activist.
Well, apparently so. I just wouldn't imagine being attacked at that age. I can't even imagine being attacked at this age. Over your words.
It's bad being attacked at any age.
That's right. But
it's just the way. It just goes with the territory. You've got to have pretty thick skin, and you've got to be prepared for these sorts of things to happen if you're going to speak out.
No doubt, but of course, you were attacked over words. Basically, that's always silly.
Yeah, well, that's pretty well what happens most of the time, really. If you look at history, people hear words they don't like and they have no recourse, and so all they have left is physical violence to try to shut you up any way they can because they just don't want to hear. So, it's just the way it goes.
For sure, and of course, you're out there in Australia. What is the weather like out there, Max? As you know, I'm out here in the desert, and it's triple digits. So I'm usually dying right now.
It's actually beautiful. It's just coming into spring. First day of spring today here, and it's beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful day, and it actually feels like spring. It's warm, it's sunny, it's a beautiful day. So, yeah, it's good. It's good.
Oh, you can't do that out here. As soon as you open the door, Max, it feels like an oven outside.
Yeah, whereabouts are you?
In Central California. That is way down south. Way down here.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to be in California next week, actually. I'll be in California. I've got to go to LA.
Oh, nice.
Next Tuesday next week, I'll be flying to LA. So, yeah, I'm pretty used to Southern California temperatures. It does get pretty intense down there.
Yeah, but now it's a little bit nicer, so you should be fine out there. And, of course, can you tell us a little bit about your travels to LA as we walk along here with you?
Yeah, well, I've got to go to LA. I'm actually speaking in Philadelphia. I'm just going to go to LA and sleep for a couple of days, get over the jet lag, and then I've got to go to Philadelphia and do an anarchist convention, Anarchadelphia in Philadelphia. That's going to be a 3-day event on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. That's going to be great. There'll be Mark Passio. I think Larkin Rose is going to be there. Jeff Berwick's coming along. A whole bunch of people are going to be there. So it'll be good. It'll be a really good event. And then after that, I've got to go to Mount Shasta. I'm doing an event I think it's the 27th of September at Mount Shasta. It's called the Avatars of the Earth Gathering. And I'm just going to be basically doing a workshop there. I'm just going to be kind of sitting around and having a conversation with the people. I'm not really going to be doing a presentation. It's just going to be a workshop and conversation and see where it leads. Because sometimes these sorts of gatherings can, you can go to some really great areas when people start questioning you and you just have an open conversation. It can lead to anything. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then after that, there's a good possibility I'll be speaking at an event in Denver, Colorado. I won't be able to finalize that until I actually get to Philadelphia. The guy who's doing the gig in Denver is coming to see me in Philly. So we're going to work that out. And then I've got to go to a wedding while I'm over there as well. A friend of mine's getting married in Spokane, Washington. Benny Wills from Joy Camp, actually. Anybody who has not heard Joy Camp should really go and have a listen to this guy because he does some great stuff. And so that's one of the main reasons I'm going over there, actually, is because these guys are getting married. That's what made me agree to go and do the talks. So I've got 3 talks to do while I'm over there. It's going to be a pretty lightning whirlwind visit. I'm there for like 5 or 6 weeks, and I've got like 7 stops to do. So
killing multiple,
won't be too much time off.
Yeah, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, basically.
Yeah. Well, like they invited me to the wedding, and I went, "Oh, October? Nah, there's no way I'm going to get to the United States in October." And then I got offered a talk in Philadelphia, and I thought, well, okay, that's pretty close, so that gives me a reason to accept the talk. Because I can't afford travel. This is the problem, and I don't have a lot of money. But they offered me the talk in Philadelphia, and I thought, well, okay, I can just get them to book the return flight a month later rather than a week later, and that way I'll get the flight to the United States covered, and I can actually go to Benny's wedding. So that works out pretty well. So it's amazing the way the universe works,
Oh, yes, that's the great thing. Sometimes the universe will work in your favor, and for others, sometimes not so much. And speaking of Philadelphia, it's a pretty tough crowd out there, and someone threatening you that's from maybe the Philly area. I'm not surprised to hear that whatsoever. Are you at all in any way, sort of, I guess you could say, afraid of what could possibly happen?
No, not at all.
They're just threats.
I don't really do fear. I mean, you get threats like this all the time. I've had threats from so many people over the years. I've had so many death threats in emails. You say something on air that people disagree with, and you get death threats over it. It just goes with the territory. Right. That's just the way it is. You've got to have pretty thick skin if you want to be an activist in the real world. And I mean, Philly's a tough crowd, but it's a good place as well. I've got some good friends there. And no fear. I don't have any fear of anything. I mean, I'm not scared of death anyway, So the karma would be on them, and if the universe wants me to go out that way, then that's what will happen. But I don't think so. I don't really have a stake in any of this, So no, I just don't do fear. I don't really concern myself with these things. I find them kind of novel. It helps you're on the right track, really. If you're upsetting people to that extent that they, are getting that upset about it, well, you're probably, hitting areas that people should hear. So, it just goes with the territory, brother.
Amazing. And of course, as we roll through multiple topics here tonight, last time we discussed a plethora of topics, and I wish to do this the same here tonight. And of course, I wanted to get your permission, Max, if it's cool with you to take phone calls here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a problem. I'm happy to take calls or whatever.
All right, awesome. If anybody wants to call in anytime, if you have a question or if something sort of pops up during our talk here, please feel free to call in. That number is 760-332-8724. One more time, 760-332-8724. Don't be afraid to call in. We would love to talk to you. So, Max, as you are probably aware of by now, there's all sorts of tragedies going on here in the United States. People are being shot left and right. And here we go yet again, Max, as we take our focus back down to West Texas, where there was another mass shooting, my friend.
Yeah, I just saw that on the news just before I came on air. I haven't actually looked into it, but just saw it on my news feed as I logged on here. So yeah, it just seems to be almost a daily occurrence in the United States now. They're really trying to do what they can to disarm the people. But I think a lot of people are seeing through it all. I think a lot of people are seeing through these shootings. I mean, so much of it is staged, so much of it is theatre. There was a video footage of the shooting in Philadelphia. I saw what looked like the police running back to their car and spraying blood on their arms and then running back into the fray. So, they're doing what they can to try to disarm the people of the United States. They really need to push this gun reform through. I mean, they're not going to be able to just disarm them, but they need to be able to push the background checks and all this sort of stuff that they want to do, and relabeling anybody who has shows like this as being potential terrorists and all of this sort of stuff. But, they're doing what they can to make the normal people, normal in inverted commas out there, but see anybody who talks about government corruption or anything that we talk about as being a potential terrorist, basically, and they really want to push this divide. If you look at the United States, it's the main activity that's happening there is a polarization of American society. They want to divide them into two camps, and then split those two camps into another two camps, and have a left and right of every opinion, and it's all about polarization. That's what all this is about, and they need to make us look like we are the potential terrorists. We are what is the danger to society because we're questioning the government actions and the people desperately need the government to keep them safe. So it's all part of the same play. It's pretty standard for them to do this sort of stuff, but they seem to be getting desperate. They've really stumbled over so much stuff in the last year. And the complete farce and debacle that they did with Christchurch, which revealed the extra players and showed the police involvement and all sorts of stuff, all caught on the shooter's video. And then you've got this ridiculous so-called alleged suicide of Jeffrey Epstein in a maximum security jail that's not possible to commit suicide. I mean, they're desperately trying to, distract people from that as well, I think, So, and they know the wheels are falling off. A lot of people are looking at this stuff. I mean, the Epstein case, people have looked at this and gone, hang on a minute. People who are completely non-conspiratorial have looked at it and gone, wait a second. So this causes them to question every action of government. And so people are starting to see that this is actually a bit of a puppet show that we're participating in here. And so they've got to do what they can to try to disarm the people as quickly as possible,
Yes, an interesting little fact is West Texas shooting occurred one day before new state laws easing gun restrictions take effect. Just one day. You can't write this.
Funny that, huh?
Yeah, that's always the unusual thing, especially with Jeffrey Epstein, as you mentioned earlier. There's just too many little small anomalies, rather, that just make you question things even further.
Well, yeah, and you've got to wonder, I mean, is he even dead? I mean, maybe not. It's interesting, like just before his alleged suicide, he went and changed all of his will and all of his finances, so all of his money gets funneled into all these companies, and nobody knows who the beneficiary of all this stuff is. I mean, it could be him. He could have just been smuggled out of there, and they could have him somewhere else, and all of his money's being funneled to him. I mean, we just don't know. We can't possibly know. But even if he is dead, well, there's no way that he committed suicide. He was murdered. If he's dead, then he was murdered. So either way, the official story just doesn't add up. And so many people have seen it and just gone, this is not right. So, it's causing the wheels to fall off the system. The fact that they would suicide him in that jail,
that's wild.
So obviously not what they're saying. I mean, it shows how desperate they are, and it shows how much dirt this guy had on people that they had to get him out of the picture as quickly as possible, And there's no way of knowing whether he's alive or dead is the problem,
I agree. And 2 cameras malfunctioned outside the jail cell where Jeffrey Epstein died. So, I mean, come on. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, if this was a movie, you'd leave. I mean, we've seen this script before too many times. Come up with something new. This is ridiculous. All the cameras just happened to fail. The guards just happened to go to sleep. This guy, the most important prisoner in the history of prisoners, is there, taken off suicide watch and left unattended. And I mean, come on. You can't even make this sort of stuff up. It's just ridiculous. Like I said, if you saw it in a movie, you'd leave. So,
Yes.
It shows how desperate they are, though. It shows, like, for them to they didn't even have the nous to move him to a jail where suicide would have been possible before they did it. They just did it, So it shows how paranoid they are and how much they're losing control, how much they're scared people are waking up to what's going on,
It's really interesting, and it's picked up the last couple months. It seems like 2019 has just been insane. People have lost their minds all over the place, especially here in the United States, Max. I'm not quite sure what it's like out there if people in that area have lost their minds out there in Australia, but certainly in the United States, people have lost it, my friends.
Well, yeah, they have. And, I said at the start of the year, I could feel that this was going to be a really, really big year. And we're going to see a lot of stuff happening, a lot of changes happening this year. And we certainly have. I mean, a month after I said that, we saw everything just go pear-shaped, and people it is like people are losing their minds in some way. And you've got to wonder what's causing that, whether it's just the information that they're getting, or whether it's there's deeper reasons for it. Looking at things such as history. I've been looking at history a lot lately and looking at the alleged cataclysms, or what appears to be cataclysms that have happened recently, and even looking into the Black Plague and a few things like this. The show that I released yesterday, I was talking about all this.
Right.
And when you start reading through these reports of things, when there were grand solar minimums and stuff, there's a lot of mental instability. There's a lot of strange things that start going on with people's minds as well. Now, we're electromagnetic beings. Everything is electrical. And this is an electrical universe more than anything else. And so I think there may be even larger things at play here, which is just causing everything to snowball, even as far as human consciousness. I mean, I know it's pretty out there to think about this sort of stuff, but I think there are influences that are non-human, that are, I'm not saying alien or anything, I'm just saying electromagnetic or ethereal or something. I think there's deeper things going on here as well, you know?
Yes, there's different electromagnetic energies out there that you could definitely tap into and even control someone with. Certain frequencies cause different sort of reactions in that individual.
Well, yeah, I mean, they could do this sort of stuff with 5G and all that sort of stuff as well. If you start looking into DARPA patents and you start looking at what they can do with electromagnetic interference into the human condition, I mean, it's all quite out there. It's all there in their patents. You can go and read that on the CIA website, on the DARPA website. You can see in their own words what they already know they can do with this sort of stuff, cause mood swings in the public and whatever. They've even done experiments where they've experimented on vast sections of population, like whole cities and whole counties, with electromagnetic interference to see what it would induce in them. And you can read all the reports on their websites. So we know this is possible. But when you think about that, you know, the concept of them attempting to do it with 5G and the technology they're putting in place, what I'm suggesting is maybe there's something even bigger beyond them, maybe the sun or whatever, how this universe works, how everything interacts with each other. You know, perhaps we don't really take into account the effect that this sort of stuff has on human consciousness as well. I mean, when you look at things such as the full moon and all this sort of stuff, you know, werewolves and, you know, how the police always get more reports of murders and people go crazy on full moons.
That's
true. So
yes,
there's all sorts of weird electromagnetic stuff going on, you know, and I think there's even deeper and bigger things that we're simply not taking into account, or possibility anyway.
I think you might be right about that, but also we jumped a little bit ahead of a few things I did want to ask you about, and one of those things was going through your website, Max. It was almost like going back to websites back in '98 when I first got my computer. And I don't mean that as an insult to you. I just love the nostalgic feeling I got as soon as I went to your page and looked at some of your artwork there. It brought me back to a lot of things, Max, especially some of the clan artwork you made for the video game Quake.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's stuff there that I didn't actually make artwork for Quake, but I used to be in a game
in a clan though,
and we
yes,
used to tailor the scenes ourselves. We used to dress up the interior of the game ourselves and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I like the old website. I like the old HTML website. I don't like the new WordPress websites. They look like a phone app, and I don't use a cell phone. And I like the art. I like the artiness of it. I like art, and I like to create things myself. I made every pixel on that website, and I enjoyed doing it. And yeah, I've never wanted to change it. I find also with WordPress sites, if you go outside their rules, I mean, if you start saying stuff that isn't politically correct, they may delete your website because you've got to abide by WordPress community standards. It's kind of like Facebook. It's the Facebook of websites, you know. So I've never gone over to WordPress, and I won't ever go over to WordPress. And I just like the nostalgic feel of the site as well. I mean, I don't get to update it as much as I'd like to these days. I just don't have time. I don't even get to make the video clips I'd like to make these days for my radio show. I tend to get half a clip done, and then I just don't have time, and I have to fill it up with just graphics that I've used a million times.
Yeah, it takes
the time to do anything. I even wonder whether the days are getting shorter, because I'm sure I used to get so much more done in a day than what I do now, and I work faster now than I did then. So I don't know what they're doing with the time as well. They seem to be messing with everything.
Yeah, everything does take a great deal of time, and of course, it says that you are a musician as well. How far back do you go, Max, playing music?
Well, I started playing guitar when I was like 5 years old. I realized I wanted to be a musician, but I didn't actually get a guitar until I was about 10 or 12. And I started playing back then, and I left school when as soon as I was old enough to leave school, I walked out in my third year of high school.
Oh, wow.
And I became a musician, and I spent most of my life as a musician, traveling around and just playing guitar and doing front of house and having a great time, and I got to live on the outside of society for most of my life, which was great. And
I love that.
It gave me a kind of unique insight. And being a musician, I mean, if you're a half decent musician, everybody wants to talk to you. So you get to meet lots of people. So, I've sat in the gutter and I've had in-depth conversations with drunken black people and white people and all sorts of people. And I've sat and had dinners with royalty. So, I've met people from all walks of life in the travels that I've made around the world simply because of being a musician and being an open sort of a person,
I understand completely.
And it was great.
Yeah.
And I always steered away from fame because I saw what it did to people. I never wanted to be a famous musician because, when I'd be in a band and they want to put out a single or whatever, then they want to start molding us and training us to be something that I wasn't. They wanted to turn me into something that wasn't me. And I thought, well, I don't want to do that because I see these famous people, and I see what happens to them. And I see so many people, so many of my friends have died along the way through the journey. And I look back at it now and I think, well, it was great that I had that attitude because, when I was a young guitar player, when I was 22, 23 years old, I was probably one of the best guitar players in Australia. I mean, a lot of people told me, I don't know why you're not world famous. And I said, well, it's because I don't want to be, because I see what it does to people. And the problem is that when I look back at my life, I would have liked the fortune, but I didn't want the fame. I didn't want to be able to have people stop me when I was walking down the street and want to say hello to me and all that sort of stuff. I used to get that anyway. I used to meet people and people say, oh, you're that guy I've heard about. I used to hate that. And it would have been even worse if I was famous.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I didn't want that. And I look back at my life now, and I had an addictive personality. I had I wasn't the nicest person. I mean, I was never a bad person, but I had a bit of ego going on. I was a long-haired rock and roll guitar player.
So you had a couple vices,
I had
Max.
a bit of stuff going. And plus, I felt invincible the way you do when you're 22, 23 years old. And if I'd made $1 million by the time I was 25, I would have been dead by the time I was 27. I would have been in the dead at 27 club because I had that type of a personality. I wouldn't have handled that type of money. I would have done everything you can think of to destroy myself if I had that much money at that age.
And Max, by the way,
so when I look back at the universe, it guided me in the right way,
Understood. And Max, I was just going to quickly tag on. Did you have any sort of vices as well, like, normally, traditionally, most musicians have in the past?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I used to drink a lot. I used to smoke a lot of weed. I did all sorts of drugs.
That's normal.
But I was never a drug addict. But I did all sorts of stuff. I mean, but if I'd had the money, I probably would have been a lot worse. Is the problem. And you're invincible at that age. When you're a young guitar player and everyone thinks you're incredible, and you've got $1 million,
right.
You end up like Kurt Cobain,
That's
Gee, I wonder if
true.
I can shoot myself in the head,
He couldn't handle it.
Even Kurt Cobain said he used to enjoy it when he used to be able to walk to a music store and look at a guitar on the wall and go, wow, and dream about owning that guitar one day. Now he can walk into the store and buy the whole store if he wants to, and it's boring. That's the problem. It takes the magic out of the music. I just wanted to play music. I just love music. I just wanted to play guitar. I didn't want to be famous. I didn't care if I was sitting in the dirt. I used to think the whole concept of getting up on the stage with the light show and all the stuff and the people cheering, it was so pretentious. It wasn't about music. It was this obscene thing that happened, And you go to a poor country, you sit around in the dirt and the slop and the dust, and you just play with the people off the street, and the music reaches these incredible heights. You don't get that in the Western world. We put it up on the stage, and this whole commercial thing takes place.
Right, yeah.
It's a whole different world, and I just wanted to play music. So it got me through that world. It was interesting because when I was 4, I found out something was terribly wrong with the world, because we had to buy land and all this sort of stuff. When I was 8, I found out about the pyramids, and so I put all the Batman comics down. I wanted to know about ancient history from that point on.
Interesting.
And then, I got to school and I started arguing with all my teachers because they were teaching us stuff that I'd read different stuff in books, and I couldn't figure out why they weren't teaching us the real things, or at least teaching us to question, teaching us to expand our minds. They seemed to be, locking us into this little box and training us to be little cogs in the big machine. And I just went, no, I don't want to do this, So I argued with all my teachers. I got kicked out of 4 high schools. And then I became a musician and only had to work maybe, 20 or 30 hours a week. Not even that, like just 10, 15 hours a week sometimes.
And that's the life.
And get paid more than what most people were getting paid in normal jobs. And it gave me the ability to be able to have all this free time to go and research all the stuff I wanted to research and travel around the world and meet all these people from all these different lives and do all the stuff I wanted to do to answer all these questions. And then when it got to the point where I had the information, then the universe took everything away from me. All my music got stolen, all this stuff happened, and I had no other option other than to immerse myself in my research and become an activist and put all the information that I gathered along the way to use and do what I'm doing now. So it's an interesting thing, that's just how my life worked. But it's because I didn't ever want that thing that they called success, because to me, success was... to be a successful person, it's how well you treated others. It's how good your health is. It's how much you enjoy a quality of life, and a quality of life being doing that which you enjoy. And I enjoy just sitting in the trees and feeding the chickens and having a very, very simple life. So, and I enjoy people. I'm a real people person. So to me, that is quality of life, and to me, that is success, because your success is measured by the amount of people you help and the amount of friends that you have. To me, that's success anyway. So,
and you brought up Kurt Cobain, by the way. That's a very interesting point you made, and of course, he's someone who couldn't handle it either, and he was, of course, addicted to drugs, and he thought he could handle it, and look where that got him. And it's interesting because the best musicians, in my opinion, have always been addicted to heroin, even though that's not exactly PC to say. But all the best ones have been. It's quite ironic, Max.
Well, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting drug, heroin. A lot of people that I know used to use heroin. They talked me into it once, and I used it a little bit, and then I got an addiction.
Uh-oh.
One day I realized that I was addicted. It just because I had that extra bit. And as soon as I wanted to have more, as soon as my body went into toxic shock because I didn't have any, this was only after using it for a few days, I just went, oh my God, I'm addicted. And I stopped. And I never ever had any since. I went into cold turkey for 4 days and just did that.
That's good.
So now I know what that feels like too.
Yeah,
so I know what heroin addiction feels like, and I know what cold turkey feels like. And I'll tell you that there was one time when I went on stage and I was on heroin.
Ooh.
And I went, wow, I know why musicians use heroin. Because when I was playing, I felt so connected to the music. I don't know whether it sounded as good. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But I know how connected and how much in the flow of the music I was when I was on heroin. And like I said, I only used it for probably a week, But then I had some every day, just once a day.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was good. And then there was one day where I had some twice in a day. And then 3 hours later, my body went into lockdown. I went, oh, okay, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Don't want this.
That's good. You recognize that.
Not in control of my own reality now. Not in control of my body. Not in control of anything. So That's it. I stop. And people couldn't understand it, saying, well, "You've got some there. Why are you going through all this pain?" I said, "Because I'm addicted. I don't want to be addicted to anything." So, but it was interesting. And like I said, the universe gave me that perspective. I understand what heroin's like now. I understand why people use it. I understand how good it makes you feel. And I also understand the pain of withdrawal and what people go through when they stop using it, because I've done it. But that doesn't, but I was never a drug addict. I was never someone that was out there using heroin all the time and involved in that scene, I was just around people who were using it. And after about freaking 2 years, they managed to actually talk me into having
Talk you into it, yeah.
I thought, okay, this is interesting. And but now I know anyway. Now I know it's just all part of the experience,
Exactly. It's all part of life, really. And it's terrible when you see someone you love, however, go through something like alcohol withdrawal, which I've seen with my own very eyes. And that is also another one that's really hard for people to get clean of. It's heroin and alcohol, the worst.
Yeah, they're terrible, terrible drugs. I mean, alcohol is worse than heroin, really. I mean, the reason you get so addicted to heroin is because it's such a biological, natural drug for you. It's very, very similar to your own metabolism. And so your body stops producing certain things and it uses the heroin because that's what it does. So I've known people, like I had a friend of my father's who was a morphine addict. Same thing, really. Morphine, heroin is just a different sort of form of the same drug. But he was a morphine addict from World War II. And I knew him in the 1980s. And he was in his 80s, and he was still a morphine addict, and he was a very, very healthy man. He just used enough to put his body back into balance, didn't use it to get out of it or anything, he wasn't on drugs. But he'd been a morphine addict for like 40 years, this guy.
Wow.
And didn't affect his health at all. So that's the thing. But alcohol just destroys your body. It absolutely, completely destroys you. And it's a terrible thing. But these sorts of things, I mean, drug addiction, this shouldn't be a legal issue. This is a health issue. And it's a social issue. And drug addicts and people with these problems should not be locked up in jails. They should be healed. You know? And what most of them need is love and understanding. And we do terrible things to heroin addicts. We put them on methadone and stuff like that, which is far more addictive than heroin, far more damaging. They'd be better off using heroin than methadone. So
yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like, it's like, take this. This will help you. But it's in fact worse.
It's shocking. It's shocking what we do. I mean, it's a social issue and it's a health issue, and you should get the legalities right out of it. You know, you really should. I mean, what they did in Amsterdam when they legalized all drugs in Holland, it basically solved the drug problem because people didn't want to use those sorts of drugs anymore. People only really want to use them when they're illegal. That's the big attraction for kids anyway. Oh, we can do something sneaky, you know. So
hey, you definitely lose that. Yeah, you definitely lose it, especially as someone who, occasionally drank during high school. You would say to yourself, oh, I can't wait till I'm 21 and I could buy beer. And then once you actually hit 21, you're not even drinking very much at all.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. My parents used to let me drink when I was a child. They'd give me a glass of beer when I was like 7, 8 years old. And by the time I started high school and came out, I wasn't interested in drinking at all.
You're basically American, Max.
I mean, I did drink a little bit of. I was a bit of a bourbon drinker when I was a musician. I think it just goes with being a guitar player. I don't know, but then I just stopped that as well. I mean, I was never really addicted to alcohol. I never really addicted to drugs, but I dabbled in things.
Right.
But then one day I just decided I didn't like drinking anymore. I just didn't like the way it made me feel. So
Yeah, so you were just able to sort of guide yourself without having to use the gimmicks then, drugs.
Well, yeah. I mean, I still like smoking weed.
Sure.
I enjoy weed. I've smoked weed since I was 12, and I probably always will.
It's legal here, Max, so you can enjoy that quite fine here in California.
Yeah.
And definitely go for that. And of course, one more.
It's an ally for me,
Yes.
It helps. I got so much stuff rattling around in my head. I mean, a lot of people smoke weed and it messes them up. They can't get focus. But for me, when I smoke weed, it gives me focus. I'm actually able to.
You could function.
Correlate my thoughts and put them into some sort of focus and get a decent thought stream happening. So it just works, for me.
Right.
For some people it doesn't, but it does for me.
Everyone's different, and you're someone, Max, that I could already tell that you're someone who's creative, and that you could use these sort of things, and it actually helps your creativity, as it would for most individuals out there who have, I guess, some sort of tolerance. Some other individuals who don't regularly consume marijuana whatsoever, they take a few hits or whatever it is out of a bong or any means, and they flip out. Everyone is a little bit different, and of course, different strains cause different sort of effects on the individual. And it all comes down to that person's mental health. And just like we were talking about earlier, mental health is very important. That's why you have all these people out there going nuts out there all around the world, Max. Their mental health is severely lacking.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird though. I mean, it's coming this year, and it's getting more and more and more. I think we're going to see more of it. I think we're going to see society getting crazier and crazier over the next over the next decade.
Probably right.
And I think a lot of it is electromagnetic.
Yeah, some people have been telling me about the year 2020, January 2020. I'm not quite sure what's coming, but a lot of individuals out there who quote unquote channel have been telling me about this. Many individuals. I'm not quite sure what's coming, and I'm not quite sure what your opinion is, Max, on those who claim they're channeling whatever it is they're doing, Max. I don't know where you are along those lines, but I would love to know your opinion on that.
Well, 2020, it's an interesting date, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Like, you wonder whether that's going to be when we all start seeing things clearly. What do they call it? 2020 vision. It's an interesting thing. Why not 10-10 vision? Why not 100% vision? Why 2020? What's going on with that number? There's a lot of people saying one thing about 2020 is that the whole smart grid will probably be online by 2020. But I think when we're really going to see some major changes is around about probably 2040. But the thing is, like what I was mentioning earlier, the grand solar minimums.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting. When you look at grand solar minimums, if you look at in the past, you look at the 1600s, there was a grand solar minimum in the 1600s when all the maps changed. All sorts of stuff happened, pestilence, all sorts of things. Another one in the 1800s and all the maps changed again in the 1800s. And we are heading for a grand solar minimum now. We just moved into it actually in 2019. The electromagnetics have changed. Sunspot activity is starting to die down, and we'll be in full swing of the solar minimum by 2040. So I think that is affecting things as well. And I think that's going to have a major effect on people's consciousness. And possibly, we'll see some of that in next year. I mean, there's all sorts of people saying, predicting things to happen in January, 1st of January 2020. I don't know how they can come up with these specific dates like that.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, interesting to see. Perhaps there is some sort of a etheric conjunction or whatever. I mean, who knows? Who knows? I mean, I just go with the flow these days, brother. I choose not to believe anything.
Yes.
And
wise.
It's like if you can think of the concept of, like I said, about having no fear before, how to get through this and how to get through this world, how to get through everything that's coming and have no stake in the outcome. Because, I mean, a lot of the information we look at, when people get a stake in the outcome, they go into fear, they think all these terrible things are going to happen. They get depressed over it. They want to lock themselves away. What you've got to be able to do is just see life as being truly how awesome it really is. I mean, just the fact that we're here is awe-inspiring. It is just the fact that I can look outside and see trees and grass and sky, and that I can actually be sitting here having a conversation with someone on the other side of the world who is essentially part of the same consciousness that I belong to, of the collective consciousness of mankind, of the universe, of God, of whatever you want to call it. It's absolutely awe-inspiring to be alive. Life is a state of constant awe if you can just allow each second to unfold. And that is the trick to getting through life, is to be able to face uncertainty, to be able to face infinity with no stake in the outcome, to be able to face infinity without flinching. Because you don't know what's coming next. Anything is possible. The only thing that is not possible is that which you believe is not possible. And this is all based on your belief system. And we don't even know a tenth of 1% of what's going on in this universe ultimately. So, if you can face infinity without flinching, then you can get through any situation. And so that's why I have no stake in the outcome of any of this. I often tell people, belief is the enemy of knowledge, because you're only halfway down the path. You don't know what's coming next. And if you adopt a belief system, then there's going to be all this stuff that you miss out on. Simply because you don't believe it's real. I mean, what about the stuff that exists outside visible light that we could probably even see if we could believe that we can see outside visible light? You know, it's what our science has taught us is real, what our society has taught us is real, and we really have no clue. So you've got to be able to look at the world and look at infinity without flinching. That's how to get through everything. That way nothing surprises you. That way you don't have any fear of anything. It's all just part of the journey. You know, I mean, if I was to get arrested and thrown in jail, that's just the next part of the journey. If someone was to come along and shoot me in Philadelphia, it's just the next part of the journey. You know, no stake in the outcome of any of this, brother. I'm only here for a breath.
Especially
now, what we came here to do ultimately is...
I was just going to quickly say...
Well, yeah, what we came here ultimately to do is die. I mean, that's a given, you know?
Well, right.
So why have it? It may be that this is a soul test. It isn't what's most important is how you die. What's most important is the mental state you're in, whether you face that without flinching. Because maybe that's the real journey, because this life is so short.
Right.
How come we come here with all this incredible intelligence and all this incredible complexity of human nature and we only live for 50 or 100 years? It's ridiculous. I mean, this can't be all there is. Perhaps this is simply the exam that you do before the real test, before the real journey starts and the real existence starts. I mean, we don't know. So you've got to be able to face it without flinching, all of it.
We definitely are born to die, Max, as they say. And speaking of that, Max, where do you align yourself in terms of religion? Are you a religious person, Max, at all?
No, I don't do religion at all. I believe in a higher power. I believe in what you would call God, but I don't need religion to get in the way of that relationship.
Understood. I'm an agnostic atheist myself. I pretty much feel the same way you do, Max. Keep Jesus in reserve.
I think...
Never know.
I think there is a higher intelligence that people would call God, but I don't need someone else's interpretation of that. I don't need a book written by King James. I don't trust the king anyway.
Same here.
And I don't need someone else to tell me what that connection is. I have a great relationship with God, and I don't need anybody else to get in the way. So I think it's when people look for the answers externally to themselves, and all the answers can be found within.
Right.
Now, if you want to get religious, even Christ said that. So, people are looking in the wrong direction. People are afraid to know themselves, really, and that's where the truth lies. That's the only truth you'll ever know is yourself.
I like that. And Max, what really got you started down this path in terms of activism? What case was it exactly that really opened your mind and sort of guided you along this sort of path that you're on today, Max?
Well, look, I became active, publicly active the way I am, and making the movies and films and radio show and stuff when 9/11 happened. But I just thought it was a need to do it. But what started me on the journey was when I was 4 years old, and my parents told me we had to buy land, and I was horrified at the concept of buying land. Because I thought, how can you own the earth? We have to pay to be here. We have to pay to be alive. We have to pay to have a roof over our heads. I couldn't understand why we couldn't just go and live in the forest. And I had a terrible childhood from that point because, I just couldn't. I thought I was born into a madhouse. And so I just wanted to find a way through it. And I found a way through it as a musician, but that became a bubble for me. I lived in that bubble for a long time. But then when 9/11 happened, I thought, well, hang on, this is serious. This is the big event we've been waiting for that we thought was going to happen, and it's going to usher in this new world order they want to usher in and all that sort of stuff, which is essentially the control grid and the smart grid. And I thought, well, it's now necessary to put all of this knowledge that I've got into action. I've got to start telling people about the clear and present danger we're now facing. So that's kind of what got me started publicly. I mean, and when 9/11 happened, I was hitting chat rooms and all sorts of stuff like that. I didn't really know how to harness the power of the internet. I didn't find out about YouTube until like 2007 or 2008. I think it only started in 2005 anyway, YouTube. But I thought it was just a place where high school kids uploaded their videos and stuff. So I'd never really looked at it. But then I found out that there was this whole sort of truth movement YouTube. So I started doing that. I thought, well, that's a good way to get the word out to people. So, but yeah, I've been on this path all my whole life. But like I said, I kind of avoided it for a long time. I stayed in the bubble. But when I can look back and I can say, but the universe kept me in that bubble because I didn't have all the information I needed yet. And it wasn't until I got in the point that I had all the information, and then the universe took everything away from me and didn't give me any other option. It was either that or commit suicide or just immerse myself in my research because I had nothing left but the shirt on my back.
Did it really come down to that though, Max? Suicide?
Well, I got to the point where I lost everything that ever meant anything to me. Music had been my whole life, and I was the musician guy, and music was where I went for my source of strength. And when my ex-wife stole all my music and stole my stereo, stole my whole music collection, all this stuff, and suddenly music became my source of pain, and I didn't have anywhere to go to find strength because my source of strength had become my source of pain. And it was a weird place to be in. And all I had left was my mental faculties and my research that I'd always been fascinated in history and what happened and why we were in that state. And I was in a pretty bad mental state. I mean, I'd been living in a homeless shelter. I'd sort of brought myself back from that. And every time I get a little bit up the ladder, my ex-wife would come along and just stick the knife in and do something else to me and take something else from me and ban me from seeing my son, all sorts of things. She tried everything she could to destroy me.
Right.
And when she took absolutely everything from me, I suddenly became free. It was the greatest gift anybody had ever given to me when I lost everything, every single thing that I owned, almost everything that I owned. I still have a few things stashed away in storage, but everything, like all my music stuff, when I lost that, it was the greatest pain I ever experienced, but it was the greatest gift that had ever been given to me. Yeah, that's chicken. Shut up!
The chat room there.
And yeah. And so it freed me, and I lost attachment for all personal possessions. I realized how meaningless it all was. How I had been, like I said, I was the music guy. I was the music. I was my music collection. I was all this stuff that I had, but I wasn't me. It was a distraction from being me, and it was a bubble that I was hiding in to not ever have to face being me and not ever have to share being me to the world around me, So, like I said, it was an incredible source of pain, and I could have gone that way and taken it as painful and just said, well, that's it, I'm over. Everything that means anything to me is now gone, so there's no point in being here. And those thoughts crossed my mind. But then suddenly I just felt free. I just felt like, wow, now I don't have anything to hold me back. I could just go and do anything. I don't have to. I could go and travel again. I can do whatever I want to do because there's nothing here to hold me here. There's no stake in anything anymore. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or what's important is me. I've got what I came into the world with, and now I've got that time for reflection. I can look at my life and say, well, why has it brought me to this point? And it's obviously brought me to this point because now I'm supposed to step onto this path. And so I stepped onto it. And it's been like a blessing stepping onto this path of activism. It's just all unfolded. But I couldn't have done it had I not lived my life as a musician beforehand. And I couldn't have done that had I not left school in the third year of high school. And I wouldn't have done that had I not gone into the forest with my parents when I was 4 years old and asked them why we couldn't live in the forest. So when I look back at it, and even understanding what it's like to go through a broken relationship, what it's like to not be able to see your child, what it's like to be addicted to drugs, what it's like to go through a withdrawal, what it's like to be a homeless person. I can even share something with you that I don't share with many people that I've been coming to terms with that I can share lately as well.
Yeah.
Is that when I was about, I don't even know, I think three or 4 years old, I was raped on the beach.
Oh my God,
by
Max.
a man. So I know what it's like to be an abused child. I know what it's like to go through all of that stuff. So
that's pretty heavy.
I've lived in a storm drain, and I've lived in a mansion. You know, I've been an abused child. I've been a drug addict. I've been a famous, guitar player. Well, not famous, but I've been playing in front of thousands of people, and been the adoration of the crowd. I've done all sorts of stuff, and so I can relate to people on so many different levels. And when I look at it, I look back at my life and I go, all of it was a gift. Every single thing that happened to me was a gift, because all of it brought me to where I am now and made me the person that I am now. And I think I'm an okay person. I think I've got value. I've helped people. I'm a worthwhile person. I'm a good friend, and that's something I always ask myself. And that's something people should ask themselves. Are you the type of friend that you would want to have as a friend? That's something we never ask. Are you the sort of person that if you met yourself, would you want to be a friend with this person? Would you see this as being a wonderful person you want to be around?
I think at times we do definitely go through that at one time or another in our lives, whether it's through maybe drug use or even alcohol use. You definitely come back to that sort of mindset where you ask yourself, am I a good person? Everyone definitely goes through that, no doubt, Max.
Well, it isn't just are you a good person, it's are you the type of person you would want to have as a friend? Are you the type of friend you would want to have as a friend?
Right.
And we get led, even when you get back to religion, we get led little certain ways by subtle nuances. There's things like do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Well, that's not a good thing to do, because maybe you're a sociopath.
Yes.
Maybe you're a masochist. It should be, do not do unto others that which you would not have done unto you.
Also, Max,
that subtle shift.
Yes, and also, no good deed goes unpunished, Max.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
that's the way it goes, isn't it?
Oh yes. Well, Max, I do really appreciate you opening up here and telling me about that ordeal. I had no idea that you actually went through something that disturbing and that awful, Max. I'm glad you were able to get over whatever it was during that time period. I'm sure the mental anguish that you must have experienced after something like that happened to you, Max, that I'm not quite sure how old you were.
Well, it's a weird thing.
Yeah, it's got to be.
It's a weird thing because I didn't remember half of the day until I was about 45 years old.
Jesus.
There was always this day that I couldn't remember half of. But what I remember is that suddenly when I was 4 years old, I started soiling my underwear again. And that went on until I was about 6. And I never understood why, because I never knew I was doing it. It just used to run out. But it's because all my bowel muscles were torn. And, but I didn't remember any of this stuff. And it all flooded back into my mind when I was about 45 years old. And my mind had, the human mind is an interesting thing, and it protects you from this sort of stuff.
Right.
And I'd always had this day that had gotten up to this certain point. I'd been taken to the beach by my mother, and we went there with another man and this family guy who had a kiosk on the beach, and we were friends with that family. And my mother and this guy went there, and she was having an affair with this guy. I didn't know. I was like 4 or 5 years old. She told me to go and play in the shallows of the water. I'm saying it's a terrible day. I was really excited. I remember getting my bucket and my spade. I was really excited to go to the beach that day. And she told me to go play in the water, and I went down I said, it's a terrible day, Mum, and why does he want to open the kiosk when it's so windy and there's no one at the beach, And I went down to the water, and the waves came in and nearly grabbed me and nearly dragged me out to sea, and I nearly drowned, and I was so terrified. I was like, must have been 4 years old, I think, I don't know. And I was crying, and I ran back up to the kiosk, and I pushed the door open. And she was lying on the floor with the man, and they were doing things. And she closed the door and said, I told you to go play. And I sat out on the edge of the kiosk, and I cried for a while. And then this man walked up to me and told me, come and eat some lunch with him. And he ended up,
Oh, no.
It all turned pear-shaped. Yeah. I remember sitting with him and him telling me we were playing a game, we were stuffing our mouth full of sandwiches. And as soon as I had my mouth full of sandwiches, he threw some tape over my mouth, and it sort of went from there. But I couldn't remember anything past sitting there and eating sandwiches and laughing with this man.
Yeah.
I could never remember the rest of the day until I was about 45 years old. So the mind does interesting things.
It
like
does
that.
suppress those sort of memories, no doubt.
And when the trauma came up, I was able to deal with it because I was in a place, and I was I was old enough to be able to deal with it.
Right.
But it really answered a lot of questions for me about the actions of my mother, about why we moved away from the city we were in without the rest of the family. Just her and I moved away quickly, and all sorts of stuff happened because she was a single mother. This was the 60s. Single mother having an affair with a married man on the beach. A young boy gets raped. I mean, she would have lost her children. She never told anybody about it. She never told the rest of our family about it. And she died before I could question her about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it was something that I had to deal with on my own. And I've always thought, Mum, I wish I could have just said to you, Mum, what happened on that day?
Yeah.
But, yeah, and that's more than I've ever shared of any of that.
I'm glad you need
stories.
to. Yeah, I'm glad you said that though, Max, because it's best that you definitely get these things out there. Definitely, people do care about you, Max. I definitely want you to know that people do genuinely care about you, and they really do appreciate you being as honest as you have been here tonight. It's that's heavy stuff you're dropping here tonight.
But it shows the power that we have, though. I mean, I've been that far down the tube, brother. This is why I keep saying to people, the concept that I'm someone special, I'm not. I'm you. I'm like everybody. I've been through all the same shit that everybody's been through.
Right.
And I can relate to that. And the fact that you can be so far down the tube and don't ever think that you cannot come back. Don't ever think that you are not worthwhile. Don't ever think that you cannot make a difference. Because look what I've done. Look what I've done. Look what I've done. I managed to meet millions of people I've reached. Some of my videos have got millions of views.
That's
some
true.
Of my videos. So, one small person, one small voice who is just prepared to be honest enough with themselves to be honest with other people can make a difference. And it doesn't matter what people say about you. It doesn't matter about the death threats. It doesn't matter about people who think differently to you, call you a shill, or call you this, or call you an agent, call you whatever because you're not thinking in the same box as them. It doesn't matter. None of it means shit.
True.
What matters is the lives you can help by being yourself and being prepared to be yourself and understanding what you are and what's brought you to this point and realizing that all the things that happen to you happen for a reason. It's what you do with the information. I could have committed suicide. When I look at my life, all the bad shit that's happened to just about anybody, I've been through the whole lot of it myself. I've been through so much shit in my life. And I could have easily gone the other way, but I chose to use it as information to empower myself and to empower others. Because if I can empower others by my journey, that will maybe prevent them from having to go through that. And ultimately, I need people to wake up. I want everybody to wake up because I want to be free. And I can't be free until everybody's free. So, what are we contributing to that? And even in this so-called truth movement, all this stuff that we do, what's the meaning of it all if it isn't about freedom? That's what it's always been about, is freedom. That's what this whole thing's about. And the freedom to express ourselves and be ourselves and realize that all of this stuff happens to keep us back and to keep us from being free. But it's the choices we make. It's what we choose to do with the information that comes to us. You're on a path, and everything that happens to you is simply information that is coming into your consciousness, and it's what you do with it. So I could have done the wrong thing. I could have become violent. I could have become a thief. Could have got a chip on both shoulders and gone out and taken out my anger and frustrations on the rest of the world and hurt people if I wanted to. But that's not what it's about. It's not what I chose to do with the information. So. Don't ever think that you're not worthwhile. It doesn't matter what's happened to you. It's all been for a reason. And like I said, I look back at all of that stuff that happened to me and I see it now as a gift because it brought me to right where I am now, sitting here having this conversation with you, being able to share this with people and maybe being able to help their lives. So, that's what it's all about.
I think you will. Yeah, I think you definitely will reach those out there who have gone through something traumatic in their lives as well. And I'd definitely like to remind everyone out there and those people too, how quickly life can turn around in an instant, Max. Definitely don't give up on yourself. Not you, Max, but anyone listening to this. Life can quickly turn around for you in an instant, my friends.
Absolutely. All those things that we thought were terrible, that really, really bad moment you had 20 years ago when your whole world fell apart and you wanted to kill yourself. How do you feel about it now? Doesn't mean shit, eh?
Right.
Doesn't matter. It all changes. It doesn't matter. Just don't hold on to this stuff,
Right. And I'm sorry to change the subject very quickly here, but I also forgot to mention that I did get a chance to hear some of your recordings on your website, by the way. Some of the audio that you've made.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there were just a few old things that I had around. I didn't have much left. When my ex-wife stole all my music, she deleted all my stuff, took all my recordings.
Oh, man.
That was just a few digital things that I had. But I had all my old band tapes. I had so much stuff.
She went right for she went right for the jugular on you there, Max.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Took the whole lot. And then wouldn't let me get it back. Said possession's 9/10 of the law. If you try to make a fuss, I won't let you see your son. So it was the end of that.
Yes, I hear you. And by the way, did you even record those guitar parts too? Specifically on the 9/11 song?
Yeah, that's all my stuff.
Oh, damn, Max, you are pretty good.
I used to be. I wasn't that good then. I was when I was earlier. I recorded all that stuff when I was probably 50 years old,
It still sounds good to me.
Maybe 45.
I've been playing...
When I was 25.
25.
When I was 25, I was playing some good shit.
Understood. I've been playing in a band and been playing guitar and bass for most of my life, to be honest with you. I've done a lot of recordings, but, I prefer the bass. There's something really rewarding about that low end. Not sure why.
Yeah. If you can play it well, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it. A good rhythm section is a good band. Definitely.
And Max, you are an analog man, right? You're definitely not for the digital age.
No, I don't even like digital music. Digital mixes. You're mixing with digital. It sounds like glass. It sounds layered. You can see through each layer.
I could understand some of that.
Each layer separately, and I don't like that. I don't like the warmth of it. I mean, I don't like the coldness of it. I like the warmth of the bleed between the tracks and the analog. A digital mix. It's the only way I can describe it. It sounds like glass.
I can understand what you mean by that. Definitely.
You can literally hear the layers.
You kind of can. It kind of floats.
Too much clarity.
It sort of floats above the sound for some reason. I know what you mean.
Yeah. My father, before he died, when radio and everything and TV went digital, he couldn't watch TV anymore, and he couldn't listen to radio anymore. He had to go and he went and bought an old transistor radio, battery operated, and he used to listen to that.
Wow.
Because he couldn't stand the sound of the digital radio, and he couldn't stand the sound or the colors of digital TV.
Yeah, understood. There is a bit of a difference, no doubt. And of course, Mr. Igan. Do people call you that, by the way? Do they call you Mr. Igan by any chance?
It's a strange thing when people do, but sometimes they do, yes.
Yes, I like to sometimes call people in their formal name like that. So sometimes I do have a habit of doing that. But I did want to ask you one thing here. In terms of the latest craze and all sorts of topics here in America, one of the latest and most popular is the topic on ufology. Lots of people have been going crazy about that, especially this past year. I definitely wanted to get your take on UFOs and the paranormal, that sort of realm. Some listeners even asked me to ask you about that, so I'm curious about your reaction to that.
Well, the question is, are UFOs real? Well, sure. I saw one in the year 2000, and it looked pretty real. It was a textbook UFO disc, glowing light, the whole thing. The question is, who's driving it? I didn't see the driver, so I don't know. The whole concept of, are we being visited by ETs and all this sort of stuff? I don't know. I can't prove any of it. Maybe. I'm open to everything. Belief is the enemy of knowledge, as I keep saying. But the whole concept of disclosure and all that sort of stuff, let us know.
Right.
They've been saying this since 1976.
That's
I've
true.
been waiting for disclosure. About every 10 years it comes up, disclosure. It's like every 10 years we've got a new cataclysm.
History repeats itself, Max. You know that.
Yeah, I keep saying to people, they do this every 12 years. It takes 12 years to get through high school. And so every 12 years they have a new catastrophe. Back in the 60s, we're heading for an ice age. Then in the 70s, it was the hole in the ozone layer. Then in the 80s, they told us global warming and that the world was going to be flooded by the year 2000. Then in 2000, it was peak oil. We're all going to be running out of oil and everything. We're all going to have no power. Then it was, I think there was something else. I can't remember one of them. And then suddenly it's climate change. And now we've got the kids coming out of high school telling us the world's going to end in 12 years. It happens every 12 years.
Max,
it's the same sort of thing with UFO disclosure. Every 12 years or so, there's a new big push for this and a new ET expert, and disclosure is just a matter of moments away. They've even booked the airtime. It's all going to happen. Yeah, I've been hearing this since 1976. Yeah. So, I mean, I saw a UFO in the sky, so I know UFOs are real. It was an object. It was flying. I couldn't identify it. So therefore, it was an unidentified flying object.
Correct.
The question is, who was driving it? Was it multidimensional? Did it come from the inner Earth or the outer Earth or another dimension or another planet or just over the hill? Who knows? Was it being run by CIA or Little Grey? I don't know. I didn't see the driver. So, but I know UFOs are real because I've seen them. So that's I mean, this the question. People ask me over this, and I say, well, look, all I can really do is give you my opinion on other people's opinions, none of which I know whether they're true or not. So
never know. Yeah.
For me to even give you an opinion on what I think about aliens, all I'm doing is offering you an opinion based on absolutely no fact or personal research at all or personal experience at all. And all we'll succeed in doing is muddying the waters a little bit further because I really don't know. So that's about all I can say.
Well, it's good.
I saw one. But
sure.
Who was driving it? No clue.
It's good to speculate. Always fun. And and of course, I did want to ask you another thing about Donald J. Trump. And of course, I know you've played video games for a long time yourself. Same here. I grew up playing Quake and playing all sorts of first-person shooters. Unreal Tournament, another game that I love. Did you ever play that, by the way, Max?
A little bit. I wasn't really into those sort of games too much. I used to play a little bit of Enemy Territory with my son because I like the team nature of it. I didn't really like to just shoot 'em ups, like Quake and stuff like that.
A team deathmatch is there. That's always fun. And but what I was gonna get at was recently Donald J. Trump blamed violent video games on all these recent shootings. And I personally disagree on his assessment, and I wanted to know your take on that, Max. Are violent video games causing individuals to go out and commit mass shootings, quote unquote?
No, I don't think they are at all. I think MK Ultra is probably causing people to go out and do mass shootings. And how many of them are real, how many of them are staged is another question, So no, I don't think it's violent video games at all. I think it's this society, and I think a lot of them, some of them are just hoaxes, some of them are real, some of them are hoaxes. So, I don't think violent video games are the reality at all. I mean, I think the violent video games, the war games such as Call of Duty and stuff, these are used to program people into go out and becoming soldiers and murdering people in foreign lands.
Recruiting.
But as for murdering people in our own lands, no, I don't think video games have anything to do with it.
Interesting. Very interesting. I have often wondered if that was kind of used as some sort of recruitment tool because, as you know, Max, back in the 80s, look at how many people ended up becoming cops after the TV show Chips. So TV does influence a lot of people out there, especially here in America. Max, you know that. Lots of the majority out there, the ones who are perfectly content with coming home at a certain hour and watching their favorite television show and warming up their favorite TV dinner. They're perfectly content with that sort of lifestyle, Max. That's all they want.
Absolutely. It's a huge influence. I mean, there was a show that came out, I think it was in a movie, might have been 1963 or something, called The Divorce. And the divorce rates in the United States skyrocketed in that year that movie came out. That was the beginning of the breakdown of the family unit. Making a divorce look attractive to children and stuff. Get about there, be a free woman, So absolutely, it influences people to an incredible degree. But you'll find that the TV influences them more than the video games do, as far as shooting people up.
Very interesting, Max. I had a feeling you'd say that. I definitely don't feel that video games are at all responsible for some of this behavior that we see. And it makes me wonder about Trump and his assessment. I'm not sure if this was his real opinion. And, you know this, Max. Oftentimes, these opinions that we hear are not often their private opinion opposed to their public opinion.
Yeah, all scripted. You know, I mean, even when they had George Bush saying some of the weird things he said in public, I think they just did that to distract us, have him saying stupid things. I mean, Trump was saying about nuking hurricanes the other day as well. I mean,
Yes,
it's just stupid stuff to get people talking about what the right hand's doing, so they're not looking at what the left hand's doing. You know, but, you don't program people with things like video games. It takes interaction. It takes auto-suggestion and neuro-linguistic programming and stuff. You get more of that from the television than you do from video games. Like, the film Divorce, it wouldn't have worked if it wasn't people having conversations. That's why they have two news anchors. They have a man and a woman there, and they'll offer this little opinion. Oh, gee, what did you think about? Oh, yes, well, that puts that thought into the people and teaches the people what they should think about the article that they just had on there.
Right.
That's why they have two anchors and they have a little comment about it. The comment isn't there because they're actually intelligent people wanting to have a comment. It's a scripted comment to make you think that this is the way you should look at this. So you need that NLP and that interaction in order to lead the audience in a certain direction. You don't get that from video games. Video games are just basically going there and testing your reflexes and your speed skills and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's fun. I did a lot of video games. I don't want to go and shoot anybody.
Same here. I love video games, and I don't want to ever pick up a gun and harm another individual, no matter how mad or offended I am. I would never treat another human being that way.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up stuff to actually use a gun on someone. But unless they have a gun and they're robbing my house, in that case, I will definitely have to use a gun myself. And there's plenty of guns here.
That's the thing, counter-violence. I don't believe in violence, but I believe in counter-violence. Not a problem. You should defend yourself.
Understood. Exactly. I feel the same way. I'm not against guns whatsoever. And a lot of individuals out here definitely want to take away your guns, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, Trump's doing it. I mean, he's saying he's not. He doesn't want to change the Second Amendment and all that sort of stuff, which was, essentially would be treason anyway. I mean, he's supposed to protect the Constitution. But, more background checks and all that sort of stuff. And like I said, the recategorizing of conspiracy theorists as potential domestic terrorists and all this sort of stuff.
Oh,
this is a pretty frightening trend, and he's kind of pushing that. So even saying, well, we need more background checks and blah blah blah, it's basically, yeah, your guns are okay as long as nobody who disagrees with anything we say has one.
Yes, that's the same way Google likes to do things as well.
Yeah, Google. Wow, what a joke that's become, hey?
It really has.
Even YouTube. I mean, what a joke. I mean, censorship is through the roof. They've got auto captions on your YouTube clips now. So if you say certain words, the auto caption picks it up and you get censored. So you've got to talk around things now. That's why you can't say the J-ish word. You've got to say things like the men in small hats. So
oy vey.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. Yeah. Because and that shows you. I mean, you're not even allowed to say the word. I mean, come on, folks. What was that quote that to learn who rules over you, learn who you're not allowed to criticize.
That's true.
Voltaire or someone like that. I mean, that's the way it is, folks. I mean, there it is. It's been delivered to you on a silver platter. Now you know who you're not allowed to criticize. Now you know who rules you.
Don't you just hate that?
Now you know who's got a pretty saying it anyway,
Don't you just hate that, Max, how certain governments, they just want to hold your hand so badly?
Well, yeah, the nanny state, that's what they want to do. You need government to protect you. Who from? What, the other governments? It's crazy, isn't it? I know China wants to come and invade you, really. So China's going to jump up and walk over and eat America, is it? Well, it's not. It's a country. It's not going to do anything. The government of China may be a problem, but if the people of China were to remove their government and the people of America were to remove their government, then there wouldn't be a problem, because you go and talk to China. None of the people in China want to go and have a war with any Americans. None of the people in America want to go to have a war with China. It's the government. It's always the government. The government's just, two sociopaths facing off against each other saying, hey, how many people can we murder this week? Make them think we're having a war with each other. Then at the end of it, they'll go and shake hands and say, oh, look, we're not at war now. Go and rebuild your cities, It's a joke. The whole thing's a joke. It's just governments protecting you from other governments. Now, governments are there to make you think that you need them to protect you. They create all these problems so that you think you need a nanny state there to protect you from everything. But really, it's just the governments. They cook up all the problems themselves to create the concept. They actually need these people to be there. It's like the bankers. We really need the bankers to look after our money. Oh, my God, we can't look after it ourselves. We need to put it in the bank. My God, what would we ever do if the bank wasn't there? Probably have a bit of freedom, So, yeah, it's a joke. It's a complete joke. The government's the nanny state to protect you from the other governments. It's crazy.
Government.
We don't need these people at all.
Government.
It's a complete scam. Government is racketeering.
Yes.
It's extortion and racketeering. That's all it is.
Governments are always wanting to kill someone. That's what I've learned, Max.
Oh, yeah. They're really good at that. They love that sort of shit.
They do. And, of course, Communist China's 70th anniversary to parade, to showcase advanced military hardware. That's coming up here October 1st. And we'll be seeing all sorts of different toys China has been able to acquire. Some stealth fighter jet, some road mobile intercontinental ballistic missile also on display, as well as a submarine launched ballistic missile will also be on display. So lots of excitement coming out of our friends in China, October 1st.
Yeah, and they're probably not even telling you about the real stuff that they've got, the really bad stuff, like, the laser, multi-spectrum laser displays they've got and stuff like that, which were banned by the West, developed by the West, and then banned by the West and sold to China. Why do you think they did that? Things that you can't even wear safety goggles against these because they change spectrum, just a bright flashing light which would change spectrum, and your eyes automatically drawn towards the light. You're going to give it a quick glance. It'll even go through safety goggles and it'll blind you because you can't get any goggles that will keep out every spectrum, and it goes through rapidly random spectrums. And so you send this out and just blind an entire battlefield and just leave them there blind to their own devices. They'll all die. So, that sort of stuff. China's got weapons like that, which are absolutely disgraceful, anti-human, anti-life weapons developed by the West and sold to them. So, I doubt that we'll see any of that sort of stuff, but that's the sort of stuff they've got. They're actually leading the world in some of the most inhumane technology we've ever seen.
Yes, it's very, very unsettling what's been going on around the world. And just to take you back to America here, I'm not quite sure, Max, if you've been following along in the American political spectrum. It's been kind of embarrassing for the most part. Of course, talking about the Democratic race to Trump, Mr. Donald Trump. I'm not quite sure if you've been watching any of that.
No, I haven't been, actually. I haven't been keeping up with American theatrical politics. I mean, it's all theatre.
It is, big time.
It's all theatre for the masses. It doesn't matter who wins. And I've said it doesn't matter if Trump or Clinton got in. I mean, Trump doing things his way, but I don't think Clinton was ever designed to get in. I mean, I thought she was, but I don't think that she was. I think Trump was always meant to get in there. And it's all theatre for the masses. I've said so many times, you can put a piece of toast in the president's chair and put a little smiley face on it with ketchup. And it'd do the same. You'd have the same result. It doesn't matter who you put in that chair, you're going to get the same result because the president doesn't run the country. He's a mouthpiece. It's all the advisors that sit behind him who run the country.
And I agree 100%. I've been saying that all along here, and I'm glad you definitely feel the same way. That's just the talking head for our president, really. That's basically our mascot. Is really what it comes down to. And
yeah, but you needed someone like Trump to create the incredible polarization that we're seeing with American society. Really, really split American society into two camps, the Trump presidency, more than any other president would have done, And someone just posted the King of Israel. Yeah, that's what I've often said, is that he's the greatest president Israel's ever had.
Well, I'm not going to argue.
Even so, the Israelis are saying he's the second coming because of all the stuff that he's done for Israel. Israel's had so much leeway to do whatever it wants since Trump took office, and that should be, obvious for everybody to see, and that should be very telling for everybody as well, you know?
Yes, sir. And of course, one of the most recent developments, allegedly, I should say, a new poll indicates there's some sort of three-way tie, or a three-way dance, as I like to call it, for the Democratic nomination. Sanders, Warren, and Joe Biden. And of course, Sanders and Warren are doing quite well for themselves. And I feel Joe Biden, he's going to eventually get buried pretty hard as we go along here. And the real question is America ready for a female president? That's a question I asked last time, and it was quite controversial. Some people didn't want to call in because they were so offended. So they took to their emails, Max, and let me know their opinions on that question.
Yeah, well, you know, if there is a female president, it would be the only way to get Trump out of office. And it would be the change that people want to see, the same as the change that was Obama and the change that was Trump. It's just the next theatrical move, you know?
Yes.
It'd be the same thing. Put a female piece of toast in there and use different colored ketchup, you know?
Yeah, this is P.T. Barnum, my friend, and everyone is eating it up, as I like to say.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be the only way to get Trump out of office and make it seem like he was such a bad thing, which would be, they might do that just to throw the truth community a bone again. So all the people that have been on the Q train would think, oh, the Q was right, see, you know, rah. So,
yes.
You know, the Q train's been incredible. Let's get people in action for the last 2 years, just sitting there eating popcorn, waiting for the big change that's about to happen. That's imminent. It's like disclosure that they've been going to do since 1976, you know, so... Yeah, that'd be the only way they get Trump out of office. But they'll do that. They may even let Trump stay in there for another term. But then I wouldn't be surprised if the next president is female, because that's the only way they're going to get people to actually believe that there's going to be some change, in inverted commas. Then at the end of that, when they find that there wasn't any change, well, they might realise that the whole thing's been a theatre from the beginning.
He has done a good job so far, though. Donald Trump, slightly, compared to what he was running against. That's the unfortunate part here. But Trump hasn't exactly been the devil in disguise, as they say.
Well, no, I mean, he's what he's done though. If you look at when you say he's done a good job, he's kind of promoted isolationism. He's distanced America from Europe. He's distanced America from China. A lot of the farmers in America will tell you that it's been incredibly difficult for them since Trump took office because of the tariffs and stuff.
That's true.
So
I guess it depends.
He's made things easier on the ground for some sections of American society, but if you look at it on the world stage,
the globals, yeah,
what he's done as far as isolationism in regard to China and Europe, and the support that he's given to the absolute destruction of Yemen through his support through Saudi Arabia, and his support for the state of Israel, which is a rogue state, this should speak volumes to anybody. If you look at the world stage, the agenda hasn't changed at all. It's actually escalated since Trump took office. I mean, Israel's been able to get away with stuff it never would have gotten away with if there'd been another president. Now, what they say, they're calling him the second coming. The amount of arms sales going out to Yemen, and the terrible situation that's been constructed in Venezuela and in Iran as well.
That's true.
Americans still believe Iran is some sort of a threat to them. It's crazy. Iran hasn't attacked another country in 270 years. Doesn't want to go to war with America. You know, and what's happening in Venezuela is a humanitarian crisis, which Trump is really, really pushing. So, you know, I don't think that he's a good guy at all. I think he's just doing stuff on the ground to keep Americans on his side, so he can continue the globalist agenda of sticking their shaft in the rest of the world the way they've already been doing, you know?
I'm with you on that one. And, of course, I must mention here, I do like some of the candidates that are female, like that Tulsi Gabbard woman. She's not so bad, as well as Marianne Williamson. She's a wild one. She's kind of insane, so that's kind of why I like her.
Well, yeah, but you've got to understand that she's entering into an insane system. So it doesn't matter, even if she's got some good quality points. Once she gets in there, she's going to be constrained by the office itself, you know?
Yeah, she's going to be compromised.
That's what the office is about, you know? She's going to be compromised. She'll just be another mouthpiece for the same agenda, being told what she's told to say. That's just the way it goes, you know?
It really is. It's quite sad to see that. But that's what's going on right now here in American politics. And of course, Trump back in the headlines yet again, a big shocker. But this time it comes from a personal aide now that had some sort of strange night out where she was drunk and made some sort of disparaging comments about his family, especially about his daughter, and some sort of a weight issue. Or apparently, this woman, this aide, her name, I believe, is Madeline Westerhout. Not quite sure if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but this woman, she was the longtime personal assistant and Oval Office gatekeeper. Yes, this woman, Madeline, that we're talking about. Apparently, she was drunk one night and made some off-the-record comments about Trump and his daughter, Tiffany, being overweight. And I'm curious what you thought about that. Do you think he actually said something like that, Max, about his daughter, Tiffany?
I would not have a clue. I wouldn't have a clue. It wouldn't surprise me. He's a pretty arrogant sort of a guy. But I wouldn't have a clue. I mean, half of this stuff's probably cooked up. It's all irrelevant anyway. I mean,
pretty irrelevant, yes.
It's just all this stuff to keep people gossiping about all these little things that don't mean anything. It's like people dancing with the stars or whatever. You know?
Oh Lord, yes.
It's theatre. It's just a little puppet show. You know,
it is. It's quite silly.
And they can think that's something important. Oh, gee, he said something terrible about his daughter, but he's supplying $1.2 billion worth of arms to Saudi Arabia so they can carry out genocide in Yemen. No one's talking about that. That's just there on the back burner, you know what I mean? Oh, but what he said about his daughter. You know, people need to look at their priorities here with all this sort of stuff. You know, and you've got to understand that even with the Chinese system, the Chinese government, they all work together. The whole Kim Jong-un thing, and look, Trump went to North Korea and North Korea has been a CIA state since it was invented. All you got to look into it, you know, since the Korean War, the whole thing's been run by the CIA. It was a puppet show. It was just there to make it look like he's bridged this gap between North Korea. They all work together. Now, you can think of all world governments as being a worldwide, multinational, multi-generational criminal cabal, which has insinuated itself over every country and is masquerading as government. Each country is kind of like a department store with all their chattels and goods and chattels in there, and they all work together. It's one big crime gang. You know, we don't need government at all. That's the problem, you know. So all of this stuff is theatre, you know, the left and the right and people in there. And if you're working within that system, you've entered into a corrupt system, which is corrupt from the ground up. That's the way it is. You know, so don't think you're going to be able to make a change if you're not entering government with the sole intention of reducing the size of government to the point that we don't need it anymore. Then you're just part of the agenda. It doesn't matter. There's no way you're going to make in there and bring in policies and all this stuff and actually make a difference. What you've got to do is go in there and reduce the size of government and get people back to a point where they're empowered enough to govern themselves. That's what we need.
Understood. Would you be in favor of an all open source government, Max, if that was even possible? Some people have proposed that sort of idea, but I think that's sort of living in a fantasy world, as you know, Max. Man is wolf to man.
It's a fantasy world because, unfortunately, too many people are not intelligent enough for open source government. I mean, that might be an unsavory thing for people to want to hear, but it's true. You know, if you look at the general mentality of society out there, I mean, some of these people, honestly, they couldn't manage a pretty cake stall. You want them to help, you know, have a say on what happens in government. You know, most people will be voting for cash in their own pockets, no matter which way it goes. Even when you look at the political system, who are the candidates you vote for? Most people vote for the candidates which promise them the biggest tax breaks, so they get more cash in their pocket. Most people vote with their pockets. You know, so
yes.
Yeah, even in an anarchist society, when I say we need to reduce government to the size we don't need them anymore, and we're back to a state of anarchy and self-governance, this would take a couple of generations to do, or at least one full generation to do, because people at the moment are simply not capable of governing themselves. They're not intelligent enough to govern themselves. They don't have enough information to govern themselves. You know, and you can just see this via YouTube and Facebook and all these places. This is what you do. You know, you give everybody in the world a soapbox so nobody gets heard. You know, that way the intelligent people that have got something that people really need to hear don't get their voices heard because you can't hear them above the cacophony of everyone else shouting and wanting to put their 2 cents worth in. So, yeah, great idea, open source government. Possible in this state of human consciousness? No, absolutely unrealistic. So,
Right.
we need some sort of someone to get in there and revamp the education system, revamp the political system, create an education system where people are actually educated again, taught real history, taught real things about life. And like I said, it would take at least a full generation, if not 2 or 3, to lead us back to a point where we are capable of looking after ourselves again. It's been a process to bring us to this point. It's been a process, a deliberate dumbing down over generations, and you can't simply flick the switch and turn back to freedom because people are not competent enough to deal with it. If people were left for their own devices, societies would start eating themselves within a week. People wouldn't know where to go if they were left for their own devices.
No, I'm with you.
That's the sad reality.
It is. That's true. And that's the problem, though, Max. Like we were talking about earlier about society and how we're doing now. We are a very small percentage that think this sort of way, Max. Even though you've had lots of views and you go and talk to all these people, and it seems like we're a big sort of statistic, but we're not. We're not a big group of individuals out there. We're very small in terms of numbers, and that's kind of the hard part, how to reach the other masses out there, that part of society out there. Most of society, as you know, Max, and I'm sure you agree with this, they have become completely numb in America. Most have become apoplectic and even apathetic, myself included at times, Max.
Yeah, they have. It's an unfortunate thing, the fluoride, the electromagnetic bombardment, and just the hopelessness that people see of the situation because people think the machine's too big and they can't do anything about it, As I've often said, if people were to change their perspective and simply realize who and what they are, we could change the world in a day. If people suddenly stepped into their moral compass, if they refused to comply with wrong behavior, if they refused to comply with any legislation which complements wrong behavior or causes them to step outside their moral compass, then we change the world in a day. If people did the right thing in all that they do, and if people literally had the epiphany to realize the power of themselves, like some of the stuff I've attempted to share with you today, and just realize that the true awesomeness of being alive, we change the world in 3 seconds. Just bang, shift perspective and walk away from this system in mass. We could do it in a day, but will people do that? No, but they won't because they're afraid, they're in fear of what might happen if they do, so that's the sad situation that we're in, and we are in a minority. So what you can do is be the best person you possibly can be a pleasure to be around, influence people in that way, get out in the real world and just be an absolute shining light. Give to people as much as you can, help people, help everybody you can, and be yourself, be comfortable in being yourself. Like I said, face infinity without flinching, and you'll make a difference. And that's what I do in my everyday. This is how I approach every situation that I'm in, and my approach is every day. I try to improve somebody's life. I try to do a random act of kindness every day. When I go out and do something, I'll do something for somebody somewhere. Every day I do something, So that's how we make a difference. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Is how we make a difference. But don't think we can save the whole world. We can't. A lot of I even wonder about the whole concept of void portals wandering around, non-participating players, as they call them, so I think there's a lot of that as well. There's a lot of stuff out there. It only took like 1% of the population to bring about the United States Revolution, the Civil War or whatever it was, the American Revolution. So, we don't need all the people to wake up. All we need is those who are awake to apply themselves to reality in the correct way, and we will make a difference.
Understood. And what about the individuals out there in Australia, in your stomping grounds, Max? I haven't really talked to you at all about those individuals out there and where they are mentally in terms of what's going on around them in their country and as well as America, and if any of them are actually paying attention to what's going on out here as well, or are they just living their lives like anyone else? What's going on?
Well, I lovingly call this country Apathralia. So
beautiful.
That's the general zeitgeist of the population. But, we actually have seen a reasonable amount of activity rising now because of the 5G rollout and the smart city that they want to bring in Darwin. I've seen people that I wouldn't even expect to be activists becoming active in regard to 5G. We've had a huge groundswell of people getting on board with this. So, yeah, I think, like I said, they're stumbling over themselves. They're doing things too fast. They've really messed things up this year with Christchurch, with this Epstein shooting, the rollout of 5G so quickly. Everything they're trying, they're pushing it so quickly. I think that we've upset their plans a little bit, and they've had to escalate things a little bit. So, stuff that was going to take 5 years, they're now trying to push through in one. And people are seeing it now. People are seeing that, hang on, this is not right. And so we're seeing a reasonable amount of people standing up now in Australia. I'm really pleased with the amount of activism I'm seeing on the 5G front and the Wi-Fi front and all that sort of stuff here in Australia. So I've actually been able to step back from that a little bit, because there's now major sections of the community who are not conspiratorially minded at all, who are going out there and challenging council and getting barristers involved and really getting involved on the ground themselves. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good thing. I think we are seeing a certain amount of wakefulness happening, and a little bit in their own way. People can't be woken up to the entire situation that we're in. They need little bits at a time, and I think 5G is causing that shell to crack a little bit with people, so that's a good thing.
Before we jump into 5G, I just wanted to quickly mention perhaps one of the reasons why those in Australia are not too keen on some of the things going on is probably because they're more concerned about what things can actually kill them out there. It seems like any insect or animal out there can just take you out of commission, Max.
No, I think you hear a lot of propaganda about that in the United States. I mean, I've lived here my whole life, and it's really not as bad as you think. We hear reports the Japanese call Australia the giant island of death. Everything wants to kill you. It's really not that bad. I mean, we see the odd snake, the odd spider or whatever, but it's not that bad. The people that live in Australia don't ever think about it. So that's not the concern. I think what's keeping them back more than anything is the fluoride in the water, possibly the lithium they're spraying in the skies, and the propaganda and mind control they're getting from the television and from their smartphones.
I thought it'd be the box jellyfish out there.
Well, you know what seasons they're coming, and you know where not to swim, so it's all good. We don't worry about it. There's lots of stuff that wants to kill you, but it doesn't worry you at all if you live here.
What about any kangaroos? Do you have any sort of stories about going heads up against one of those?
No, they don't bother you. There's no roos around here where I live. You might see the odd wallaby, but they keep to themselves. They're just eating grass and stuff. They don't want to fight you or anything like that, not unless you want to go and harass them.
That's true, yeah.
So,
amazing. People
that go and try to steal joeys or whatever, they might go and get into trouble, but no, you don't get any of that. It's lots of legends that you hear about this place that simply aren't true.
It's overhyped then. People are exaggerating.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Understood. So, Max, let's get a little bit into 5G here for the last remaining 30 minutes of this program. And I understand you've been quite busy this month and coming up next month. Even then, you're going to be quite busy going to that conference in Philadelphia, as you said.
Yeah, that's actually next week.
Or next
Philadelphia.
week.
I head to Philadelphia. That'll be not next weekend, the weekend after I'll be in Philadelphia. So, yeah, I'm going to be pretty busy from next week until about October 22nd. So shows are going to be a little intermittent on the radio show. I'll just see what I can do about getting information out to people. But, yeah, going to be pretty full on for the next 6 weeks.
Very nice. So you definitely are busy, and you've been to Philadelphia before, so you know what to expect out there. And I definitely want you to tell us just a little bit about 5G and what you will be talking about out there. Just a sample.
Well, in Philadelphia, I'm not even really going to touch on 5G that much in Philadelphia. I want to mainly talk about history and where we're going. I'm only going to be doing a 30-minute talk at Arkadelphia, but then I've got a couple of workshops and a couple of panels and a few things to do from that. So, I mean, with these talks, I don't usually prepare them. I kind of go there and it's what I'm feeling on the day. So I kind of ad lib most of them if I've got a slideshow, sometimes I'll put a slideshow together to keep me on some sort of track, but I'm not actually preparing anything for the talk in Anarchadelphia, and I'm not preparing anything for the talk in Mount Shasta. I just want to kind of feel the crowd.
Improv then,
open
yeah.
my mouth and start talking and see what comes out, you know.
I like that.
That's the way I do the radio shows as well. I kind of go in there with the opening quote, and I might have a vague idea of what I want to talk about, but the shows tend to go off on so many tangents and cover so much ground because I don't have anything scripted. I don't really know where I'm going when I start. I just know that I have to talk for an hour. So I just start talking and see where it ends up. And I kind of like it that way because I reach areas that I wouldn't normally reach. And sometimes I can, get onto a thought flow, and I can have ideas that I wouldn't have otherwise thought of. Some of the stuff you hear on the radio shows, it's the first time I've even thought of that stuff when I say it sometimes, because it's just the way my thought flow has gone. When I'm asking questions of the audience, and that's basically what I do with the radio shows and what I do with the presentations is I encourage people to ask the questions because, too many people go in there and pretend they're an expert on all these things. And ultimately, we don't know too much about anything, really, if people are just prepared to be honest about it. It's encouraging people to ask the questions to begin with, which I think is the big awakening moment, just asking those questions,
Yeah, that's one thing I hate about those individuals out there who host a show of their own. Lots of times they'll bring in a guest and they'll give that sort of perception that they know more than the person they're bringing on to talk about that subject. I always wondered, why would you have this individual on if you are the so-called expert? What's the point of that?
Yeah, a lot of people tend to do that. It's a strange thing, but I don't like even being termed an expert on anything. I find the title very, very uncomfortable because, as I said, the only thing I'm an expert on is myself.
Right.
And I'm not even an expert on that. I'm still learning about that. So, Yeah,
you have a lot of pretentious individuals out there, especially those who call themselves journalists as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, what's a journalist? Someone who writes a journal. That's all you got to do is write stuff down. But is your opinion valid? Does that make you a journalist,
Indeed. And of course, we are heading towards that line now where I do want your thoughts and opinions on a few names here. And one of them that does come to mind is one Alex Jones. He was one of the very first people in our modern times to get deplatformed and given the whole 5-star treatment, frozen assets, platform removal. And of course, Max, it seems like maybe that might happen to you sometime. Maybe that might even happen to me sometime too.
Well, yeah, it could. It could well happen. I mean, I've got a strike against my channel at the moment. I can't upload to my channel because of an interview that I posted the other day.
Oh, no.
I mean, Alex, I don't know whether I trust Alex or not. I mean, maybe some people say he's controlled opposition. Maybe he's just an opportunist. Maybe he just chooses not to say certain things that he should say. I know he's definitely a sensationalist.
All of the above.
Definitely a lot of clickbait and all that sort of stuff. But, I think he serves a purpose. He probably woke a lot of people up. But then I wonder how much of that is contrived as well. When I look at the whole truth movement and the 9/11 truth movement, I mean, he's gone back on a lot of the stuff he said back in the early days. So, and when I look at the concept of the externalization of the hierarchy, I mean, the powers that believe they be want this information getting out there. You got to look at the truth movement. Why do they let us do what we do? There's a reason for it. And if you take it back to the beginning of the New Age movement, Alice Bailey, the Lucius Trust, Helena Blavatsky, she actually wrote a book called The Externalization of the Hierarchy. And what that is about is the exposing the inner workings of the mechanism, the revelation of the method, So they want us to know what is going on. They want the truth to get out there because the gamble they're taking is that people will see just how corrupt this system is. They'll become aware of the pedophilia. They'll become aware that all the governments are corrupt and all these things are happening, but they'll continue to go along with it. You know what I'm saying? And by continuing to go along with it, we become willing participants in the pedophilia, in all the slavery and all the human trafficking. And by doing that, we willingly condemn our own souls. So that's why they need us to know what they're doing, because the human race is so apathetic now. They've dumbed us down so much. They've got the police so brutal and everyone is so much in fear that people will be aware of what's going on, but they'll just continue to pay their protection money. They'll just continue to pay their taxes and they'll go along with the system. Like I said earlier, what if the important part is how you die? What is the moral state that you're in? How far are you prepared to take, and how much are you prepared to take, and how much corruption are you prepared to become aware of before you choose not to participate in that corruption anymore? So that's why when you look at that, the 9/11 truth movement, why did they make 9/11 so obvious? Because they were fishing. They wanted to see who was away. They could have made that so much less obvious. They could have actually gotten away with doing it. So we believed it. But so many people could see it on the day that there's something terribly wrong here. And then you had someone like Alex Jones come out there and push that, fishing, the fisher of men. Go out there and with what Alex Jones did with the movies he put out and getting out there with a megaphone and all that sort of stuff, I mean, you could almost, in a way, say he was almost personally responsible for creating the entire 9/11 truth movement, and then he pulled himself away from it. Said, oh, no, I didn't say that, and I didn't say that, and I didn't say that. Well, yes, you did. You put out whole movies about it. So, and then he gets then he suddenly gets penalised and black banned and everything's put off there. So they show us what they're going to do, So they show us how they're going to penalise the truth movie. They're going to black ban us all and all that sort of stuff. There wasn't too much outcry about that. Then they arrest Julian Assange recently, and then we see a breakdown in international treaties for whistleblowers and all sorts of stuff like that as well, asylum for whistleblowers, and people didn't really make too much noise about that. Whether Assange's a puppet or not, it's irrelevant. It's how the legislation is being played. So you look at all this stuff, it's been a fishing exercise. The whole truth movement has been a fishing exercise. The whole 9/11 truth movement was certainly a fishing exercise, and I think Alex Jones had a lot to do with that. They've been tracking everybody through the internet. They needed to find out where we all are. The internet, the international nets. What do you do with the net? What do you do with the web, the World Wide Web? What is it for? It's for catching things. What do you do with a net and a web? So everything that you've ever done online is still there, even back in your old MySpace pages. Every post you made on MySpace, and then you went back and you edited that post, it's still there before the edits. Every edit is there. Everything you've ever done online has been collected and correlated. And they needed something like the 9/11 truth movement and the actual truth movement to be spawned, so they get tabs on everyone. And now with the censorship and the algorithms, they're basically sweeping the truth aside, and now you'll see people start disappearing, and nobody will even become aware of it. And with the deep fake technology and all that sort of stuff, I mean, they could come and take me out and have deep fake on, and you could still hear me doing my radio shows, and you could even see me on videos. And they've got how many samples of my voice out there from the 300, 400 radio shows that I've done, so they could create anything they want now. They can create any type of reality they want online. They have the technology to do it. And when I look at it, it's all been a fishing exercise, the whole thing.
Sadly, it really has been. Everything about us has already been surrendered by us right away. No need for some sort of mark of the beast, as many people have been alluding to. All of that has already been done via your cell phone.
Really, the cell phone and the credit card. See, I don't own a cell phone. I don't own a credit card. I've never bought anything with a credit card. I've never gone into it. I've got a debit card that I use because I need one to buy airline tickets, but I don't keep any money in that account except when I've got to buy tickets. And I've never actually gone into a shop and paid for something with a card. I've taken cash into every shop I've ever gone into. Even when I travel overseas, I pay for my hotel rooms with cash. So I've never used a credit card, and I don't use a cell phone for anything. That is even people that say they're religious and Christian and stuff. I say you don't indulge in witchcraft. Have you looked at scrying mirrors and sigils for summoning demons, which all look like electrical circuitry? You're carrying a cell phone around. You're using a scrying mirror. This is witchcraft under your interpretation of what it is. Okay, these are scrying mirrors. This is the beast system. If you think you're not going to ever become part of the beast system when it comes online, well, you already are. Everybody that is using this stuff is already part of that system, And
very true. Even going to church and going to mass, doing all the singing, all that, that's all witchcraft as well.
Well, yeah, it's the thing. They're worshipping idols. They're doing all sorts of stuff they were told not to do. So, yeah, interesting stuff.
Anytime you even
But
pray.
I even think that these are left there as warnings for us. You know, like when you see these sigils in use, when you see these scrying mirrors in use, you're about to summon this force, which is going to wipe you out. And I think it's happened before. I think we have cyclic cataclysms. I think we have previous civilizations that have been come before us, and I think that these civilizations are wiped out approximately every 200 years.
Now, there was another name I just remembered right now, and that is one Michael Moore. What are your thoughts and opinions on one Michael Moore?
I think he is absolutely controlled. I think he puts out very, very safe information. Again, it's the externalization of the hierarchy, showing you how corrupt it is, but just sort of going along with it, you know. And I think he's absolutely controlled. He's doing a specific agenda, and he's part of the system. He'll never give you the real truth. He'll give you just enough of it to make you aware of the corruption, but not the real truth of what's causing the corruption or how to get away from that.
My opinion on one Michael Moore does vary, but I do give him credit for producing the film Fahrenheit 9/11 and, of course, Bowling for Columbine, which I thought both were pretty good, but as time has gone by, we kind of see that Michael Moore definitely someone who took advantage of everything he was able to, and I don't exactly fault him for that, but he has become something else as of late.
Yeah. I don't think he's been completely honest with what he presents.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, definitely. But Fahrenheit 9/11, that was a great film for its time. Definitely opened the eyes of many out there, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. But like, it didn't give you the whole story, though. It gave you a portion of the story.
Exactly, not the whole thing. And that's another thing I was going to bring up to you. In terms of those in the so-called truth movement for 9/11, there is a group by the name of architects and engineers, and that's one of the criticisms that they do have themselves, that they sort of only give you some of the answers, but they don't exactly fully give you who's responsible or why. That's one of the major ones.
Yeah, but again, these you can kind of. I mean, I don't know if I particularly trust that crew at all, but you know, you've got to understand the logic in that as well, because once you start pointing the finger, you just, okay, well, I've made the claim, and now I've got to defend that claim.
Yeah,
I've got to
be
give
careful.
proof, and you're just going to get into an argument with someone else who thinks it's somebody else. So, and ultimately, we don't know. We can suggest, we can theorize, but we don't know. What we do know is that the government story is completely impossible. So that should be the focus, because you're not going to know what the real truth is until you get people to understand that what we're just. It doesn't matter who you think it is. What matters is that the government story is wrong, and if we can have a proper investigation, maybe we'll find out who the real perpetrators are without the need to argue about it. You know, so I can kind of understand that mentality. I mean, I have my own thoughts on who actually carried out those attacks. But again, I don't make that statement and make that claim.
Those claims, right? Because
it just creates arguments, and I can't prove it. And if someone thinks it's somebody else, well, now we're stuck in the details and we're arguing about the details. This is what they did. I mean, with 9/11, 9/11 was so obviously staged. But then we're halfway through actually alerting the world to the fact that it was staged, and then you had groups like architects and engineers come along and make a claim. Okay, they came down because of this. You had some people saying thermite, some people saying directed energy weapons, some people saying micro nukes. We don't know. It could have been any one of those things or all three of those things.
Right.
You're just arguing about the details rather than focusing on the fact that what the government said is wrong. That should be the details. So, you know, we get caught in arguing over the details. It's like with these mass shootings. Was it fake? Was there blood? Was there shell casings? Was there this? Was there that? The thing was a black op, you know, and that should be the focus. It's the same as 9/11. It was a black op. That should be the focus. You know, it's arguing over the details. This is what they want you to do, because then you're just caught fighting amongst each other and you're not dealing with the fact that the government did this, you know.
Divide and conquer. Another tactic.
Absolutely. On so many levels, brother. So many levels.
Understood. And yes, lots of interesting things that went on during 9/11. And of course, you do remember where you were when that happened, right?
Absolutely. I remember exactly where I was when 9/11 happened.
Oh, my. What did you initially think, by the way, as soon as you saw that happen?
Well, when I first saw it, I mean, the first thing I thought was, gee, terrible pilot. Same as George Bush said. That's the first thing I thought. What the hell? How does a guy hit a building like that? But then I saw another plane fly past, and I thought, hang on, there's another plane flying around. This is not a pilot. This is a terror attack, you know. And then the second plane went in, and like, oh my God, it is a terror attack. And then the building came down, and I went, okay, this isn't a terror attack. This is the big event we've been waiting for, because that wasn't just caused by a plane. And straight away, as soon as the building came down, I knew this was a staged event. But until that time, I thought, yeah, terror attack. I mean, like most people thought probably. But originally I thought, wow, how on earth do you fire a plane into that building? I mean, what, was the pilot on drugs or something? I mean, what is this, you know? How can a plane have hit the World Trade Center, you know? So that was probably, that lasted about 5 seconds, that thought. And then I was thinking, yeah, terror attack, you know? So, I mean, like most people, this is back in like the 2000s. I mean, this is 19 years ago now, or 2001, so 18 years ago now. But, yeah, I mean, but as soon as the building came down, as soon as it started collapsing, I just thought, no way, this is controlled demolition. This is being set up by the government. This is the big event we've been waiting for. So hold on to your hats. We're really heading somewhere with this.
I could tell you right now that I actually got in trouble that morning of September 11th back in the day in the classroom for just suggesting that perhaps the government had something to do with it. I was kind of seen as I was causing trouble and was told if I wanted to see the principal.
Interesting.
Yes, very interesting. And of course, we aren't even that far away from September 11th now.
I think anybody with eyes to see, as soon as the building started collapsing, they could see that this is terribly wrong. This is not possible. There is no way a building can collapse from a fire hitting it like that. And I've been to the World Trade Center. I've been up in those buildings. They were big buildings, those big steel columns on the outside. There's no way. There is absolutely no way. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people got it on the day that something was not right. But I think the initial thought from most people was, oh, it's terrible. I mean, yeah. Until the building came down. When it came down like that, I mean, the shock and awe of that, it was that was the beginning of the end game. Absolutely.
It just seemed so unusual seeing those buildings come down that way. Both Twin Towers and Building 7.
Of course. I mean,
yeah,
it's absurd to think that a building could collapse like that from fire. Fire weakened the columns. It was right up that high in the building. How did it collapse like that at freeze fall speed? It doesn't make sense. And like I said, I've been up in those buildings. They are very, very strong buildings. There's no way that would have happened. It just doesn't make sense at all. And none of the physics adds up. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised they sent you up to the office, though. I mean, but they were calling Osama bin Laden within 20 minutes of the first plane hitting, you know. So you could see something was it was all planned. The whole thing was planned.
They seemed to know a lot really quickly, didn't they?
Yeah, didn't they? And Bill Cooper called it a couple of weeks before as well. You know, he said they've gone in and they've interviewed Osama bin Laden, so you can be guaranteed they're going to stage an event using this guy. And then 2 weeks later, they do 9/11, and then Bill Cooper's dead.
That's interesting. And of course, once you think of Osama bin Laden and you think about that family and their close ties with the Bush family as well. All CIA time.
And they flew all the bin Laden family out of America the next day, and who got they went to war with Iraq, and who got the contract to rebuild Iraq? The bin Laden family, you know.
That's interesting. And of course, we are close yet again for another anniversary of September 11th, and the media, very, very quiet about it, my friend. No one is really even talking about
I'm actually due for an interview that day, so it'll be interesting. I'll be in LA on September the 11th, the day before I fly to Philadelphia. I arrive there on the 10th, and I leave on the 12th, and I've got an interview that evening on September the 11th, so it'll be an interesting conversation.
It definitely will be. And of course, what conference are you going to out here in LA, by the way?
No conferences in LA. I'm just it's a cheap port. it's a cheap entry point to the United States. It's actually cheaper for me to fly into LA and then get a return flight across the country to Philadelphia and then back to Australia than it is to fly direct from Australia to Philadelphia and return.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. Yeah, you're going to like
I've
it.
just learned that with travel. I've learned that there's certain ports you can fly into: LA, Las Vegas, Amsterdam, London, Madrid. Cheap ports if you're traveling. If you're getting airline tickets and booking airline tickets, there's certain countries you can enter at certain places, and you'll always get it. You'll save sometimes $500 or $1,000 on your ticket because it's a common port. So I've learned this from years of travel. So when people are booking me flights around the place, I always tell them to check certain ports for prices. So
Smart.
yeah, it was actually a lot cheaper. So $400 cheaper for me to fly in via LA.
Oh, that's smart then. And of course, if you are out there in LA, definitely drop in a dispensary and pick up some edibles for yourself there.
I usually do that.
Hell yes. It definitely will make the trip a lot better, my friend. And, that sort of thing is very acceptable out here. And even now, you don't even have to go to a physical dispensary. You can actually just call a delivery service out there.
Yeah, well, that's handy. I'll probably be looking at that when I get there.
Oh, yes. It's much more convenient. That's what I do love about living in California. Most things are just a phone call away. What a world we live in.
Yeah, interesting. I was amazed when I went over there. Like, you can buy weed. It looks like makeup jars. It's all very, very
high end, fancy,
well done, and nicely presented, and all sorts of stuff. You're in other countries, you've got to sneak around and buy a little dealy bag behind a pub somewhere. It's
Jeez,
crazy.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I definitely wanted to ask you about that sort of thing in Australia. That must be pretty damn difficult to do that sort of thing there.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I know some people, so I get a reasonable supply.
Hell yes.
And I usually get it sort of delivered to my home, and yeah, it lasts me a while. So I don't really deal with that sort of things. I don't really have to deal with black market or anything like that. So yeah, I get it pretty cheap, and I know the right people, and I grow what I can. So it's all good.
Right on, man. Well, I definitely loved having you here. I really enjoyed our conversation, and of course, I would definitely recommend anyone out there listening to this to go check you out at any sort of conference or anything. It seems like you definitely like to do a bit of crowd work and do a little bit of improv when you go out there, and I love that sort of thing. It really does make everyone feel more attached to you, Max. It lets people really get to know you, especially when you're on stage for a few minutes there and you're just firing off your thoughts. People love that sort of thing.
Well, I hope so, and hopefully it encourages them as well to realize that, like I say, you don't have to be anybody special, in inverted commas, to make a difference. You've just got to be prepared to talk. And I want people to know, like, 'cause you get so many people who sort of look up to you as a guru or whatever, and I really want people to know I'm not a guru. I'm not anything special. I'm just like you. I've been through all the same shit that everybody's been through. And that's why when I'm at these conferences, I'm always out in the crowd. And like at an Acapulco, I was out wandering around with the people all the time. I'm always available to people to come and talk to, and because I want them to see that, what you hear on the radio show, this isn't someone putting on any of these airs and pretending to be something. This is just who I am. And there's no pretense in it, and there's no reason to think that you can't make a difference if you're just prepared to speak and make your voice heard, and be a good person. Like I said, be the type of friend you want to have as a friend. Be the sort of person that you want to be around. And if you do that for people, it rubs off on them, and then perhaps they will go out and they'll become the change that they want to see in the world as well. So that's what it's all about,
Yes, and of course.
And thanks for having me on, brother. It's been a pleasure to come and talk to you. I let go of a bit of stuff that I've never shared before.
Like I said,
thank you for letting me do that.
I really do appreciate that, and that's what it's all about here on this program. I definitely do take notes on certain things I want to cover, but all of that goes out the window. This definitely becomes an improv program. And Max, it's been a complete honor and just privilege to talk to you and have a real conversation with you here. And of course, your website, thecrowhouse.com. Definitely go check out Max's work and go listen to the man. Max has been doing great work for many, many years. Max, go ahead and plug anything you'd like to plug, any upcoming events. The floor is yours, my friend. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, anything you need to find out about me, if you want to contact me or anything, you can go to my website, thecrowhouse.com. Like I said, I'm going to be speaking in Philadelphia on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of September at the Anarchadelphia conference. You can just search Anarchadelphia online and you'll find that. I'm going to be speaking on the 27th of September at the Avatars of the Earth Gathering in Mount Shasta. And I'm probably going to be I'll be hanging around in LA from maybe the 16th until probably the 25th, with just kind of at a loose end, just kind of kicking back and not doing anything. So if anybody in LA wants to catch up and say hi, you could probably send me an email and we'll probably catch up for lunch or do whatever in LA while I'm there. But I'll be there. I'll have about 10 days to kick back.
Nice.
In mid-September, if anyone wants to hang out and come and say hi, and we'll just see what happens. So that's something else to think about as well. But thanks very much for having me on, brother. Always a pleasure to come and talk to you. We'll do it again sometime soon.
Yes, sir. Did you have fun?
Yeah, absolutely. A very enjoyable conversation.
Clockwise, my friend. We'll do it again in the near future, and take care of yourself out there, and mahalo, my friend.
Back at you, brother. Talk soon.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of a delay there when we were talking. But that's going to happen when you are in another country. And I definitely want to thank all of you out there for hanging out with me here tonight. We do have a bit of a break to get into right now. And of course, when I return, I do have the second guest ready to go, Mr. John Olson. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.